America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and there comes a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. So you have to put your body upon the wheels and upon the gears and upon the levers and make it stop. You have to put your body on all the apparatus and make it stop and let it be known that if you're not free, you tell the managers and you tell the people who own the machine that until you are free, you will make it so the machine will not be operable again. That is a rough paraphrase from Mario Savio. He's the free speech leader at UC Berkeley, and I am a Berkeley alum. So by the time you get through 4 years there, if you have any sort of activist sensibility, you will hear those words on campus. And we're going to talk about student activism. We're going to talk about why it starts with free speech and then moves to more concrete demands. And we're going to do all of that after the intro. Hit it.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it'll feature in your front.
All right, so I'm Osei-Frimpong. You're watching The Black Athenians, and today we're talking about student activism and what that means and how it can go wrong and what people, how people screw it up and they put too much burden on students. First of all, I was a student. I held some elected offices during college, and after that, I had a lot of jobs. One of them, I organized a union too. So I've been through this rodeo before, and I will tell you one thing I did notice while I did student activism myself, and you should watch out. Student activists, people who care about justice, young people who care about justice, you're going to take a lot of meetings, and you're going to call a lot of meetings, and all of the adults in that room are going to be paid to be at that meeting that you're doing for free. So I want to caution the activist culture that's at a strategic disadvantage for a few different reasons. I remember when I was in college and organizing what I could organize, I'd be in a lot of meetings and I'd serve in a lot of committees, and everybody else on that committee would be an adult who's paid to be there while I'm there trying to win justice for my people, except my white counterparts were at the library studying. So there is an asymmetry in the burden that we place on student activists, and I think we need to acknowledge that first and foremost, that you shouldn't have to do this work. You have to do the adult work, often white adults. You have to do their work because they don't know how to do their job, so you have to do their job for them. So it's an inappropriate burden that we put on students to do this work. I want to put that out there first. Now we're going to talk about the work itself. Let's deal with one more structural infelicity in doing that work. One structural infelicity in doing that work is that the university or the school or the high school or the grade school or the middle school is built to outlast you, right? You're there for a few years and you move up. Even as your attention is divided, you move up and out. They're built to just outlast the flare-up. The occasional flare-up. So one aspect of a student group student movement that works is that it finds a way to institutionalize itself. One of the quiet miracles of the Black Power movement was that it institutionalized, and even the feminist movement, it institutionalized race and gender studies. It institutionalized feminist departments. It institutionalized African American studies. Because once it institutionalized them as a department of the university, that means you become part of the institution in a good way. It's not just a flare-up. All right? So at the end, once I talk about a little bit more about the logistics of the movement, we're going to talk about the demands. And one of those demands is you have to find a way to institutionalize the struggle so that you don't have to keep struggling for the same thing. Because we're not in it for the struggle, we're in it for the good, and the good comes through an institution. We just need to make the institutions that reflect our justice claims. All right? So let's talk about why nonviolent? Let's talk about why students. All right. So often students are drafted into the cause or conscripted into the cause because the powers that be control the adults' jobs. Right. This was the case in the Black student movement. This is the case in well, I am actually only really familiar with the African American civil rights movement, and also because this wasn't necessarily the case in the labor movement, because the people who worked also organized the movement. But insofar as we were talking about civil rights, it's not an accident that SNCC and SCSC and even CORE was young, and even SDS, the Students for Democratic Society, the anti-war group. It's not an accident that they were effective and young at the same time because they had less to lose in terms of their job, right? They also had less experience actually governing and running in the institutions, so they didn't know what to ask and how to, in what way. So there's always going to be an expertise problem. The people with the expertise in governing, the people with the expertise in the institution are themselves not going to have always the backbone to take the risk. So it disproportionately puts the risk onto students. Right? And that's very important. Because insofar as you are a student, you don't know everything you need to know, but the people who know what you need to know in terms of expertise in governing, and yes, all of this takes expertise, but the people who know what you need to know might be too scared to actually advocate for the quality of policies we need. So that is an issue that all student movements, insofar as they're student movements, are going to have to face. The people with the expertise in governing in the institutions that you are looking to change are also going to have an interest in keeping their paycheck steady, right? And they're also going to have inhabited fears, the kind of fears that allowed them to climb up in the institution to learn what you need to learn. So there are a few disadvantages. Finding good counsel is one of them, because the people with the expertise you need are going to be so far in the institution, they're going to have a vested interest in either steering you to the safer route, which might not be commensurate with justice, or not standing with you at all because they're scared for their jobs themselves. So this is why the movements disproportionately fall to the young. We kind of sanitize the collegial atmosphere of the civil rights movement a little bit too much. There's a reason why Martin Luther King and many of the civil rights leaders were so young. It's because the people in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and their 60s, who should have by right and expertise been leading the movement, they were scared. They didn't want Martin Luther King hanging around, this troublesome Negro. Every time he comes around town, people get dog sicked on them. By the way, start looking for pictures of protests with dogs sicked on them and water hoses also. So we need a student movement. The people who are drafted into the movement are often young, not because they have less to lose necessarily, but because the people above them are scared. And insofar as we were talking about the Black civil rights movement, they were scared justifiably. People were getting lynched. Medgar got shot. There were assassinations. There were dogs. There were hoses. And it takes something else. It takes one thing to want to be part of an institution and govern. It takes another thing to want to be part of that life. It takes some people just aren't about that life. It's not the most attractive life. All right. So why is this necessary for a nonviolent student movement? All right. So we're going to talk about nonviolence. The goal of a nonviolent student movement is conversion, not coercion. I'll say this again. The goal of a nonviolent student movement is conversion, not coercion. The problem is, if you get your revolution by coercion, you'll always have to watch your back. You're still not free, because as soon as the people that you've taken over get enough power to stamp you out, they will. Right? So the goal is conversion. And Gandhi kind of understood this a little bit better than most. And if you're going to do some reading on anything I'm saying, a good place to start would be Gandhi's political writings. There's actually a little book put out by Hackett that's just Gandhi's political writings. Gandhi has a problem. himself. I did another show on nonviolent civil disobedience. You should go look at that one if you want to know how I feel about Gandhi. Gandhi himself is a very complicated character, not all of it good. We're going to talk about students now. So remember, the goal is conversion, not coercion. And insofar as you convert them by showing your humanity in a way that cannot be ignored, right? And showing how the operation of the machine, the operation of the society is punishing you for exercising your humanity. So it could look like punishing you for sitting at a lunch table. It could look like punishing you for drinking out of a fountain. It could look like punishing you for sitting at the front of a bus or in an open seat. But the goal is conversion, not coercion, and you convert people by being humane and acting like a human should, and yet that humane action draws a disproportionate amount of punishment. Right? So I'm going to give you a little bit more of the logic of that. Martin Luther King, give me a picture of King's mugshot. All right. So Martin Luther King Jr., while he was in Birmingham jail during the bus boycotts, he wrote his famous letter from Birmingham jail about how, look, one, white moderates are a problem because they think we can just be nice and ask politely and get justice in a nation that literally made us go to war in order just for black people to not be in chains. Not for black people to have money or not people to have a good life, just to not be in chains. We literally had to slaughter like Americans for that. So King blamed white moderates for kind of having a naive view about what this took and the sacrifices everyone was going to have to make and the work and the priorities people were going to have to do. But he laid it out in 4 steps in this letter from a Birmingham jail, which is a wonderful letter, by the way. One, you got to do your historical research. If you're going to try to fight for justice, you got to put in some time in doing the historical research to fight for justice. That means you look at previous resolutions, you look at previous movements, you look at the problem and the origin and the history of the problem. And you're going to have to point some fingers at people who aren't used to having their fingers pointed at, but you have to do your research. There's no way to do a good student movement or a good nonviolent movement without being a scholar of the problem you're trying to mitigate, to address. So you're going to have to do some research. And that means you're going to have to talk to people and do whatever kind of archival or historical research you need in order to get here. And then you have to negotiate with the powers that be. And that means ask once. You're supposed to go through the proper chain of commands. Because I'm not training you to be a little anarchist. That's someone who is against government in all forms. I'm training you to be against unjust government. Right? So you make a regular ask. Right? And you put a timetable on that ask, because one strategy the people in power, and let's be honest, a lot of white people have, is just stalling, saying, wait till next time. This is not the appropriate time. We'll have that in the hopper. We're dealing with it in secret. No, nobody's advocating for you in secret. Black people, nobody is advocating for you in secret. If they're not willing to advocate for you up front in public, they're not advocating for you. They might be talking about you and how you can be managed, but they're not advocating for your justice. Right? So 1, do your research. 2, negotiate. And once negotiations fall apart, and they will, you got to self-purify, because the next thing is direct action. And when I talk about purification, that means you have to understand that you're going to go to jail. That means you're going to understand that people are going to sick dogs and sick hoses and say awful things, and you have to be ready for your friends to call you all sorts of names. And honestly, it's really weird, right? So it used to be dogs, and it used to be hoses and lynchings, and Medgar Evers was shot. Medgar Evers was shot when he was organizing a voter drive in the South. So you have to be prepared to take this kind of punishment. You have to be prepared to go to jail. And there's a great book by Houston Baker called Betrayal. And in that book, Houston Baker argues that King's biggest contribution to the civil rights movement was actually in destigmatizing jail. Because once black people weren't afraid to go to jail anymore and they understood it as part of the struggle, then they gained power. Insofar as they just understood, as Gandhi said in his political writings, that jail is just a part of what a good person does from time to time. Like, the state will use your fear of jail to scare you. So you can't be, if you're going to be about this life, if you're going to be about justice for our people, you just have to know that you're going to go to jail from time to time. That means, maybe you want to have a little bail money ready. Maybe you need to tell your friends, a significant other, a lawyer. My wife knows when I get arrested, because it's going to be a matter of time. When I get arrested, there are 2 lawyers she's supposed to call who are going to help me try to get justice, or at least out. Because being black is hard enough. Advocating for black people, especially black men, you're going to end up in jail. That's just how this life works from time to time. And let's be honest, if you put a list of people who've been in jail on one side, and can you get this on my Facebook and that stuff? If you put a list of people who've been to jail on one side, Malcolm X, Kxng, Bayard Rustin, I think Philip Randolph even. Like, if you put a list of people who've been on jail on one side, yeah, Philip Randolph was in jail. And the list of people who haven't been on jail on the other side, black people, like Ralph Bunche, Obama. There are very good reasons why you might want to err on the side of people who've actually been about that life, rather than possibly Madam C.J. Walker. Like, these people are not bad people who haven't been in jail, but I'm just saying, Angela Davis, Michelle Obama. You have to ask, who do you think is going to lead us to justice? Not that there isn't room in the struggle for people who are scared of jail, but there might be too many of y'all. So get over, that's part of the self-purification. Step 3, you're going to have to get over a lot of your fears, because when it goes down, 1, it's going to go down quickly. 2, you're going to want to fight back, but you can't really fight back and keep your humanity, because the goal of this is to be inextricably human in a way that people cannot impeach your humanity, yet still bring about the incredible violence of the state or your oppressor, right? That's where the direct action comes in. You're going to have to go to jail. And this is what Kxng didn't say when he's talking about 1, do your historical research, 2, negotiate, 3, self-purify, and 4, your direct action. What Kxng didn't say, and what is critically important, you need to get your media game on. You need media. Because without this picture, give me the picture of the guy getting dogs. Look, people have been sicking dogs on Negroes for a long time. This wasn't the first time. This dog knew what he was doing. And this was before they had tackling dummies. They probably just trained the dogs on other black people. So you need media. We need this art. Without this picture, this is just another black guy who's getting dog sicked on him. Without the picture, there is no civil rights movement. It's not an accident. And I think, I was talking to a communications professor about this. Malcolm X knew it. He used television extraordinarily well. But it's not an accident that the civil rights movement and the television and the fact that there are only 3 channels all kind of happened at the same time. Some of it was planned. Some of it happened a little bit late. But it's not an accident. You need media. It's not an accident that, say what you want about the NOI, but there's the NOI and there's the final call. It's not just the bow ties and bean pies. They have a newspaper because press matters. And I'm going to try to get a press done in Athens too, a black press, or a press that talks about black issues, that's unafraid to advocate for black people and talk about black issues. And that's going to happen. But in order for me to get my own hard press and not just do it on the internet, I'm going to need a little bit more money, because I want to get the distribution right. And it's going to take a little bit more money. So if you support anything I'm doing, I need you to go to thefunkyacademic.com or funkyacademic.com One, put yourself on my email list. If you get to the website, it'll have a place where you should put in your contact information. I'm going to need contact information because it's only a matter of time before YouTube bans me. And it's only a matter of time before Facebook bans me. You should follow me on Facebook too, because people who do become smarter about things. But it's only a matter of time before Facebook bans me. It's only a matter of time before YouTube bans me. But I think I can keep my email. So I need your email to get the knowledge out, right? So I need everyone who thinks I'm doing anything worthwhile to go to funkyacademic.com, sign up on my email list. And if you want me to grow, because I get a lot of thank yous, but thank yous don't build coalitions nearly as much as money does, because I need to buy things and hire people. I'd like to pay Matthew more. He's very good at his job. I'd like to pay my people. And I'd like to run the press, and the press costs money, and I want pretty good saturation in terms of distribution. So that's all going to cost money. So go to funkyacademic.com, sign up for my email list, but also sign in for like $5 or $15 or $50 a month if you think the work I'm doing is good, which you should, because the work I'm doing is good. So we talked about historical research. Kxng's 4 steps. We talked about historical research, negotiation, self-purification, and the direct action. And the goal is to provoke a disproportionately violent response in response to your very humane actions. But none of it works if you don't have your media game right. And you have to understand that with the media, they're hostile, right? So the town media is probably going to be on the side of your oppressor. So there's already going to be a bit of a puzzle to get it published in the town media. But this is where informal media networks and independent media matters. So you need your social, you need your Facebook, you need your Instagram, you need your Twitter. It's not just for sharing cat videos. It's not just for showing your new shoes. That can be a movement tool if you use it as one. So start building a media list, and also start building your Facebook friends and Instagram or whatever, your social media contacts. Because when it goes down, when you're going to need these people, it's going to happen quickly. It's going to happen within a matter of days. And you're going to need them already in your contact file, right? So start building media contacts. That's just as important as everything else. Start building them now before it gets ugly. Because when it comes, you're going to want those media contacts there, like just one send away, right? You're going to already want to have both your media and the wider network already ready. And you can't depend on local media like in Athens, the Flagpole, or the Athens Banner Herald, especially the Athens Banner Herald. You can't depend on the Red and Black. You can't depend on these these institutional media. Sometimes they might throw you a bone, but they might only do that after you get the buzz circulated among your people. So start building your people in the media, start making connections, start building a following. And actually build my following. I'm going to need you to share this video on your Facebook page. Share it, tweet it out, right? I want you to actually send this video on your listserv to your department. A lot of you high school teachers and junior high teachers are going to have people asking you about what a nonviolent student movement looks like. Now, you want a nonviolent student movement because it's just less bloody and there's fewer lawyers involved, possibly, when it's nonviolent. I want a nonviolent movement because I actually think it's a way we can substantively win freedom without just changing the ethnic complexion or the gender of our oppressor, right? If you need a real conversion into freedom if we're going to get freedom, not just changing dictators or changing the name of your oppressor or managing your oppression. No, if we're actually going to win freedom, it's going to come through conversion, at least conversion of a good amount of people. And the way to do that is nonviolently, by being humane in the face, but provocative in a way that provokes the state's violence or your oppressor's violence. With media, with art. And I'm going to give you a good example in Athens, Clark County, of a kid last week. I'm going to say his stage name because he's still a kid and I got issues with that. Kxng Blanco, Kxng, Blanco. He's a student and a performer in town. He gave a performance as a matter of Black History Months, where beforehand he said he would not talk about the police in a derogatory way, nor talk about our elected officials in a derogatory way. But the problem is his song actually is supposed to talk about Black life. So if you're trying to advocate for Black people and you're not going to talk about elected officials and you're not going to talk about the police, you're not really advocating for Black people. And he knew that going in there. So when he gave his speech, or when he gave his performance, he advocated for Black people, which means he talked about politicians who aren't working for us, and he talked about a police department that's not working for us. And at the end, he held his hand in the air in salute. And you know what they did for him? They put him on in-school suspension, right? They put him on in-school suspension for giving this salute and going and performing the way he actually thought he needs to perform for his people. He won. And how did he win? When he got out of in-school suspension, he went to his computer and wrote up his side of the story and posted it online and sent it around to all of his friends. Right? If you can find a picture of the article, that would be great. He posted it online, and he's told his side of his story. He's like, look, people look up to me as a voice of Athens youth, Athens, Georgia. I couldn't be the voice of Athens youth and not talk about their problems. That's how you manage a movement. You get someone who is the titular head. That means they have the title, but they don't talk about the problems. All right? So he didn't feel comfortable doing that, as he shouldn't have. So when he actually got on stage and had his moment, he talked about their problems, and he did it the way that he knew how, through a song. And what happened, and he put all of this doubt on his side. He put his side of the story out and managed the story, because had he not done that, the administration would have called him all sorts of names. They would have said he was up there showing his butt. He was up there cursing. He was up there being derogatory or inflammatory. But no, he put his side of the story. And also, there was a video of the performance, right? Someone had the video. And that's very important. And Black people, we should know this. It's not just the civil rights movement. I'm from Los Angeles. I remember Rodney King getting beat. And without that video, Rodney King is just another Black guy getting beat. Like that, you got to understand. Without that video being shown, without Johnny on the spot with his camera, without that video being shown on 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and the 9 o'clock news, Rodney King is just another Negro getting beat in the street, because he wasn't the first one. So it's very important that you understand that media makes the movement, a nonviolent movement. And without media, you're done. You're food. You're prey. So we need an independent media. Actually, I think there's a reason why the first step in any sort of movement is a free speech movement. It's because through free speech, you get the other content of the movement. Like without speech, you're done. Without the free speech movement that comes before the other movement. Let me see it. We got people who can't think. What's up, my man? Without the free speech movement that comes before. So apparently there was an issue. Could you get the other screen? Yeah. So apparently there was an issue with the Wirecast. I hope you're back. Welcome back. Without media, you're nothing. Without media, you don't have a game. So insofar as you're serious about a movement, you're also serious about how to distribute the movement. You don't have guns. All you have is your Instagram or your Facebook or your Twitter. So you need to start building that now before it gets hot. Because when it happens, when the violence happens, when the abuse happens, you're going to already want the media infrastructure in place. So all you have to do is get the video out, right? I mean, Philando Castile, without his girlfriend having the incredible poise to put it on Facebook Live, is just another dead guy in the car. You know what? Without that video, the cop would have said he reached for his gun and pointed it at me. So make no mistake, the media game is as important as everything else. And Gandhi knew it. I think Malcolm X knew it. I suspect King knew it, but he didn't write about it as much as he should have. But he wrote about a lot of other things. So, and now we're going to talk about, after you've done all of that, and now you have the cameras in your face asking you what to do, you need to have concrete demands. And you can, and black people, the first place, honestly, to look for concrete demands might be the Movement for Black Lives platform, right? It'll give you ideas. Because without concrete demands, all you've had is a walkout. All you've had is a protest. All you've had is a march. You don't know what a win looks like. A win's going to look like a concrete demand. And honestly, the best kind of win is where you institutionalize the struggle so you know you don't need to march anymore, right? So if you're having issues with Black history in your school, what you need as a demand is a curriculum. If you're having issues with labor history in your school, what you need is a demand that I expect these things to be taught. If you're having a problem with representation in your school or in the greater world, what you need is a demand that says, like, I expect a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan or even a 20-year plan so that by the time I'm here, some of my classmates are teachers that will have diversity in the school or a school that reflects the community. And I'm going to need you to come up with that plan and run it by me because I got chemistry to learn. Right? I'm serious about this offshoring work to students that should be done by administrators. I've been in too many meetings where I was volunteering my time, but all the other white people in the room were being paid 6-figure salaries to do this as part of their job. So my job is to tell you that it's a problem and make sure the machine stops unless you fix this problem. Your job is to come up with a plan to me to fix this problem. To which I will say yes or no between doing other works, right? I have to do this activism because the administrator is falling down. I will tell you that you're falling down. I will suggest ways for you to do better, and I will be very clear about it, but you're going to have to do the work. And this is the same with elected officials. They're going to try to get you to do work for you, but it's their job to do the work. It's your job to maybe provide ideas, but it's their job to do the advocacy. And if they're not doing the advocacy, that's the problem. That's a problem. So these demands, and I think you can just go to Google. If you're watching this video, you have access to Google. Look for what other people in similar movements have demanded. Do the research. Because you don't want this to end in just a flare-up. Because the university or the elementary school or the junior high school is organized to withstand the occasional flare-up. That's not a victory. A victory is an institution, a Black history curriculum that's been where you have a commitment from the school board that we expect students to teach from it. All right? We have a commitment from the school, from the principals, that we expect this certain department or this department chair. You have a commitment from them in writing and preferably published that they are going to fold this curriculum into the everyday life of the school. You need to build a justice institution into an oppressive institution in order to change the oppressive institution, right? And have it not just be ghettoized, right? A lot of people think, well, I can solve my diversity problem by hiring one Black diversity person. No. I'm going to need if you're going to hire that one black diversity person, I'm going to need that person also on like the finance committee and the budget committee. I want black people in the room. If you're doing advocacy for black people, you're going to want black people in the room anytime money is discussed or changed hands, right? Not just, you don't want it ghettoized to like a diversity department. That's a good place to start. But then the diversity chair should advocate, no, I want to make sure there's equal representation in the finance committee or appropriate representation in the finance committee at the upper levels of administration, among the trustees or among the board. I don't just want it to be ghettoized to a diversity office. That might be a place to start as a launching pad, but the idea is to get, someone like a representation of the planning commission. It's the same for a women's movement. You don't just want like a woman in charge of inclusion. No, you're going to want women in charge of like the finance. You want women in charge of making decisions about the finance. You want women in charge of the agenda. Like you want women where the power is. Or you want black people where the power is. You want any oppressed group where the power is. And you want to institutionalize to make sure that there's some sort of accountability when those people are not where the power is. Can you put this on the external display so I can look at it? So understand that these institutions are organized to outlast the occasional flare-up. They're outlast to even accommodate the occasional parade without changing the money. And also, your demand should always include the needs of the black people who are working at whatever institutions, right? So if you're advocating for any sort of justice, the workers, even if they're not black. If you're advocating for justice, you want justice at a school, you want justice for the maintenance workers, right? And if you're advocating at the college, you want justice for the cafeteria workers. You find the lowest paid people working at the institution you're working at, and you get in solidarity with them, and you advocate for them. Because until we're all free, none of us are free. So I hope that helps. I know we started a little bit late. We were having some technical difficulties, and I hope this helps. And I wanted to get it short enough that you could show the entire video in a class and then talk about it. And I think that's what it did. So email this to your friends, show this in class. I think my language was appropriate for the most part, and talk about it in class. If you want some movement consultation, we have consultants of everything. Just shoot me an email. I'll try to get back to you. But this is hard work, and you need some expertise, and I want to get the conversation going. So email this around to your friends and, your teachers' groups or whatever. This is a resource. I think it's short enough to show in class, and then you discuss it the next time. And take notes, and I'll see you later. Peace.